Welcome back to Levant TV's press review for Wednesday the 15th of January. As we keep monitoring the situation in Syria, today we'll look at reasons that might lead to the divided Syrian opposition not attending Geneva II, despite pressure from the UK and the US. But as usual, let's start with papers from here in the UK. The Independent front page leads with an investigation into prenatal selection among ethnic minority communities in the UK, which has led to a decrease in female births, affecting the 50-50 gender balance in ethnic communities. Some experts have argued that the baby's sex should be withheld. The Telegraph features a headline saying George Osborne is pressuring the EU to perform better economically if the UK is to stay in the EU. Osborne believes the continent is lagging behind, facing growing competition from global economic powers, including China, India and the US, and the EU now faces a simple choice between reform or decline. The Times reports on the latest revelations of sex abuse by TV entertainers. DJ Dave Lee Travis, the Coronation Street actor Bill Roche and the artist-singer Rolf Harris appeared in separate court cases in which they are accused of the assault of a total of 20 victims spanning 4 decades. All 3 deny the charges. Now let's take a look at the top stories in the Middle East. Welcome back to our Middle East news analysis. Let's now look at some front pages from papers in the region. The Gulf News front page features a headline saying that Mubarak is asking Egyptians to vote for a new constitution. The paper also announces the launch of a 7-year national agenda in the UAE. The front page of the Arab Times says that NGOs have made a $400 million pledge to Syrians as Iraq struggles to secure its borders and Assad's forces advance. The paper also shows a photo of Egyptians out queuing to vote on a constitution. The Jerusalem Post reports on the nuclear deal with Iran, saying world powers have surrendered to Iranian interests by implementing the interim deal. The paper also reports on the 65th anniversary of the Israeli Knesset. Arab News also writes that the new vote on the constitution in Egypt has highlighted the divide in Egyptian society. As it struggles to unite, the divided Syrian opposition is coming under serious pressure from senior levels in the US. Let's learn more from what the press is saying. Lara Jakes and Laurie Hinnant write in Time magazine on US Secretary of State pressuring the Syrian opposition to attend the Geneva talks due to take place on the 22nd of January in the city of Montreux. The writers look at envoys from 11 countries converging to help restore and test the credibility of a rebel coalition sapped by vicious infighting and indecision. But diplomacy's limits were starkly apparent in Syria itself, where activists said rebel-on-rebel clashes have killed nearly 700 people in the deadliest bout of infighting since the civil war began. Jakes and Hinnant look at the timing of Sunday's meetings in Paris, just over a week before the scheduled talks in Switzerland. As the Syrian National Coalition nears collapse, its influence eroded by the chronic infighting, international pressure and disagreement on negotiating with President Assad. US Secretary of State John Kerry being the 11th on the list of foreign ministers who urged coalition President Ahmed al-Jarba to deliver his group to the Switzerland talks and finally meet face-to-face with the government it hopes to overthrow. Kerry hinted the coalition could be at a diplomatic backlash from its allies if it skips the meetings. The writers quote Kerry telling Sunday reporters, "I think the opposition understand the stakes, but I'm not going to get into consequences other than to say it's a test of the credibility of everybody. I'm confident that they will be there because I think they understand that." To conclude, the writers say moderate rebels are battling on 2 fronts, against al-Qaeda-linked militants on one side and Assad's forces on another. And finally, the Time article observes President Assad himself has said there will be no discussion of giving up power, throwing the entire premise out of the peace talks into doubt. They add the indecision and weakness of the Syrian coalition also has tested the patience of its backers, including the US. Also on the matter, AlMonitor features a piece titled "Syria's internal political opposition may not attend Geneva II." Antoine Issa looks into the matter in depth through quoting statements of the involved parties, where Ali Haider, Minister of National Reconciliation and head of the SSNP, will not attend the talks due to differences with the coalition. Haider will not be with the government delegation definitely. As long as there's one delegation headed by the coalition, we're not going. Absolutely not. Ilyas Saman, senior SSNP official, told AlMonitor by phone from Damascus. Issa goes on to comment on the wide division within the opposition. 3 years into the conflict, the Syrian opposition has failed to reconcile differences and form a united position for engagement with the Syrian regime. Issa talks about Syria's external and internal opposition organisations having been at odds since the crisis began in March 2011. Many wonder how an opposition can reach an agreement with the regime when it is struggling to reach consensus among its own ranks. On the other hand, the writer depicts the Syrian regime being in the advantageous position heading into Geneva too. The regime's list has been finalised, with Syrian Foreign Minister Walid Muallim set to head the regime contingent. Despite the opposition stumbling to the talks, foreign powers are still insistent on the Geneva II formula as a means to end the bloody war that has so far claimed the lives of more than 130,000 people. There is no military solution to the violence that has displaced millions and taken more than 130,000 lives, US Secretary of State John Kerry told reporters at a press conference following the Friends of Syria meeting in Paris on January the 12th. Today we're joined by Wajid Dahni, Syrian journalist based in Amman, Jordan. Thank you for joining us today, Wajid.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, good, thanks. Wajid, my first question, which relates directly to our coverage today of a piece in Time magazine on the US pressurising the opposition in Syria to attend Geneva II. Why do you think there is such pressure from the US?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Relating to our coverage in Time magazine on the US pressuring the opposition in Syria to attend Geneva II, why do you think there is such pressure from the US?
Well, I guess the US say the only solution to solve the Syrian conflict right now, after 3 years of violence, is resorting to peace talks. After it failed militarily by supporting the opposition groups and the Free Syrian Army groups, by training them and sending them weapons and logistic aid. So to the Americans, peace talks and Geneva II will be the only solution from this conflict.
And what are the factors, in your opinion, that have led to the divide in the opposition? And how did the West fail to form a unified opposition?
Well, the opposition groups started in the exile. They appointed themselves by themselves. They did not go back to the Syrian people. There were no proper elections. They were taking decisions on behalf of the Syrian people, and they were working for different agendas. So this is why they were always divided. They were not concerned about the Syrian people interests and needs. They did not organize between each other, and every one of them did not know what was going on the ground, and they were aiming for different things. This is why they were not not united, and this is why they cannot unite, I guess.
But even groups that seemingly had a similar agenda, like ISIS and Jabhat al-Nusra, why are they now so divided?
Well, some of them, some groups of the opposition work for Muslim Brotherhood and some other work for Salafists. Some are moderate. I don't think they would join together, and I don't think they have the same goals for Syria. Some want to have an Islamic state in Syria, some want a moderate state. Some want they want a truce with the regime. I don't think these people will ever gather together or sit on a table and talk.
So you don't think that Geneva II is going to go ahead?
Sorry?
You don't think that Geneva II will go ahead with the opposition attending as a unified group?
No, I don't think so. I think Geneva II will be a failure like Geneva I, because I don't think that the opposition who are going there represent the Syrian needs. I don't think people inside Syria will agree or comply to the solution, whatever solution will result from Geneva 2.
Thank you, Wajid, for joining us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
That was Wajid Dahni, journalist, giving his own opinions on the situation developing in Syria. And now moving on to international papers. The Moscow Times headlines journalist expulsion stirs controversy where Russia has barred a US journalist for 5 years in a move that has triggered a frenzy between Russian authorities and Western media on Tuesday, signalling possible heightened tensions ahead of upcoming Winter Olympics in Sochi. The China Daily Times has the headline, "Populist Policies Affecting Economic Freedom in Hong Kong," warns think tank. As Hong Kong's commitment to economic freedom has been held back by populist policies and the city was becoming less exceptional due to a global trend towards greater economic freedom, a US-based think tank said on Tuesday. And finally, the LA Times reports on plans to improve safety in the city of LA in the face of earthquakes in the city. For more updates, please visit levant.tv. Goodbye for today.